Jonathan Getz was fortunate to have parents who did not reject him when he came out.
I was probably 12 or 13 when I first started, when you first start having attractions, and then at probably was about 15 when I realized, oh, okay, I guess this is, I guess I am gay. And I remember for about 6 months crying myself to sleep because I was like, God, take this away. I don't want this, I don't want to be gay. And just thinking, oh, God will heal me, God will heal me, and he never did.
One day his secret was revealed in a very public way by a slip of the tongue to a friend.
Well, she had told one friend who told someone else, and then pretty much by the end of the school day, in one school day, pretty much the whole school found out, because it's like, the president of the Bible school is gay, really? It was actually, I was really surprised at how supportive people were, because I had thought that people would be, very negative about it, whereas most of my friends just were like, we already knew. I remember going to the group of friends that I eat lunch with, and I came to the lunch and I was crying, and they're like, what's wrong, Jonathan? I'm like, I'm gay. And they're like, yeah, we already knew that. When did you figure it out?
He didn't tell me the news. I discovered kind of roundaboutly. There was somebody, that was making contact with him by email. And I asked him about it, and he had been spending a lot of time down in Hillcrest. My wife and I had an idea that he might be gay.
I wasn't very surprised. I mean, I had wondered, growing up.
I was surprised, but because I never suspected that.
I have always thought that I dealt with it really well. And yet, as I reflect back, I was definitely tense about it.
Ron was talking to Jonathan about going to a gay coffee shop in Hillcrest to meet a much older man. And they were having a discussion about that, which I heard. And so I was really upset. Jonathan, to that point, had been the ideal son. I mean, he was just perfect as far as I was concerned. I don't remember discussions about him being gay. I mean, I should have recognized the signs as a school teacher, but I didn't. So it was really shocking to me. So I said, I am cursed. I don't get a good teenager, which was devastating to Jonathan. And Jonathan's response was to go in the bathroom and take a whole bunch of pills, which also began to make the stakes of this a lot clearer to me.
It is often difficult for parents to cope with the revelation of their child being gay.
He's never going to get married. He's never going to have grandchildren. He's never going to have a happy life, because all the gay people I've ever known are very unhappy. I don't want my son to be alone all his life. I don't want him to get sick and die when he's fairly young. I don't want people to reject him because of his orientation.
And you have this fantasy as a parent, they're going to grow up and get married and have babies, and you're going to have grandchildren and all, this whole fantasy thing. And then when the kid comes to you and says, hey, guess what, I'm gay, it's like, well, that, even if you're okay with it, it kind of puts a dent in your little fantasy, They may or may not have kids. They may or may not get married.
In many ways, it's a parent's job to worry about their children and their welfare.
If I had a magic wand, I would change things. Because I think he'd be happier and have a better chance for a better life.
Oftentimes we're finding that parents struggle with this, but it's more a matter of trying to find a level of acceptance.
And I hung the phone up and I cried. And I cried for a lot of reasons. But
one of the biggest fears that parents talk about at meetings is the idea of sharing with their friends and family that they have a gay or transgender child. They think they may face the same consequences that their children might face: rejection, judgment, that others might distance themselves from them. And they may even feel as if they've lost their child completely, feel as if this is a different person than the child they've always known. And what we've found is that over time, there's an adjustment process that takes place. As with other losses, they need to accept that it's true, that the expectations they had in the past probably won't happen the same way that they had thought they would.
The grief process, I'm not sure I'm done yet.
I think one of the most universal responses that parents have is, did I do something to make my child gay? And oftentimes there's a concern that because their life is going to be more difficult because they're gay, then there oftentimes is a sense that, did I do something wrong?
I don't know why people are so good at generating guilt for themselves. And I think, again, that could be a common parenting theme on all kinds of subjects. Why didn't I have the learning disability diagnosed sooner? Why didn't I, you know, I think we need to ease up on ourselves and give ourselves credit for doing the best we could as we went along. And certainly being gay or lesbian is not caused by a parenting strategy.
In addition to social awkwardness, parents can be consumed by fear.
There are fears connected with, well, you're afraid of HIV/AIDS. That's a big fear. There's also the fear of violence. Violence still occurs.
At this candlelight vigil held in Hillcrest, California, hundreds of people came together to honor the memory of 15-year-old Lawrence King, whose life ended in tragedy.
The media reports that he was a sweet, artistic person who loved to sing folk rock songs, enjoyed studying bugs, preferred vegetables to meat, and helped out at his younger brother's baseball games. But as we know, Lawrence's self-affirmation had a dark side. He was bullied and harassed by some of his classmates, and unfortunately, on February 12th, as he sat in a computer lab at E.O. Green Middle School, he was shot in the head several times by his fellow student, Brandon McGarry. The unconscious Lawrence was rushed to the hospital and declared brain dead the next day. He was kept on a ventilator to preserve his organs for donation, and finally taken off life support on February 14th.
The chilling story of Lawrence King underscores the need for parents to find a way to reconcile their fears and concerns.
It can be an extremely helpful experience for parents to know that they're not alone in this, and especially that they look around the room and see, well, these are normal people.